So let's talk about the new record, Butch Walker as Glenn. Um, Again, it's like you're going off on it's something different. I feel like with all of your music, we get something different each time. It's kind of like, is this a concept record or not?
I mean, loosely, it's not. I just come off of making a concept record, a rock opera record that actually had not come off making it. I'd made it 2 years before I ever put it out.
Right. Okay.
And then I put it out during the pandemic. And I only put it out because I was like, I only waited 2 years to put it out because I didn't think I ever would. Because I was like, nobody is going to want to hear this, only because it was just something weighing heavy on my mind, with all the, all the social and political strife that we'd been going through for up to the pandemic, leading up to that. Was making me write this little, it was basically a side item, that I was writing. I was writing this side record. And I just happened to record it, and I recorded it all and made it into a story, about a kid growing up who believed one thing and then opens his eyes to believe another. And of course that is going to be polarizing with lots of people, especially during a pandemic that was extremely unnecessarily political and very divisive. So of course that record was, okay, fuck it, let's just put it out, because it's gonna, anybody that even hears it, I don't even know if he's gonna hear it during a pandemic. There's no way to tour on it, promote it, or whatever. I was like, but if anybody does hear it, they'll have questions, I'm sure. Come to me with questions. Or people just will not come to you ever again. and that's fine too, because life's too short to just fucking phone it in, is what I think. So I like the fact that it pissed off a lot of people. And then Glenn really was just a record where it was based on a character that I had been working on a record with this friend of mine. That record's not out yet because it's not coming out till 2023, but it was a record we worked on sporadically throughout the pandemic. And it was a record for this girl, Morgan Kibbe, who is an insanely talented singer, songwriter, musician, film scorer, like all these things, and was in a band called M83, which, was another kind of successful indie rock band in the early aughts. And she had this record that she had this concept record for her, and where she was going to be going under this assumed name, Sue Clayton. And it was going to be this whole, all the songs were going to be from the perspective of this older, sort of washed up, Palms. Already I was like, this is great. It's dark. I love it. And it was beautiful melodies telling me terrible things when she was playing me some of the ideas. So she was like, and so it was like, let's make this very cinematic, very like Serge Gainsbourg, French pop almost meets, Lee Hazelwood. And, there's all kinds of 60s sounds and stuff to it. But what she did is she sent me the lyrics to most of it, because she didn't have music to a lot of it. And I took the lyrics, I took her poetry, and I put it to music. And we created this whole record over Zoom, just like I'm doing with you right now, over Zoom during the pandemic. And I recorded it here. She did the vocals there. And we have this beautiful record that's going to come out. But what was cool is at the end of it, I kept saying, man, that's so cool that you did that. And you're putting this out as under an assumed name. I was like, God, I wish I could do that. I want to do that. Why have I never done that? I've been putting out records my whole life. I've never once put them out under a different name. And I don't want it to be like a Chris Gaines, thing where I'm trying to like hoodwink the public into not believing I'm Garth Brooks. But, the thing is Glenn actually makes an appearance on her record, and that's what sparked the idea. It just so happened mine came out before hers. Whereas there's a skit at the end of a song on her new record that's about It's about her also being a phone sex work. She's a phone sex worker.
God.
Um,
I love it already.
yeah, and so at the end of the song, a little bit of the phone call comes, and it's so to speak, and it's a guy named Glenn on the other line, and she's talking to Glenn, and it's while the song's fading out, they're like talking. It gets really sad, It's like, but I was like, she's the one who kind of mentioned, she's like, well, this whole record is kind of Glenn and Sue. Like, why don't you make your personality Glenn for the record? And I was like, yes. So that's what I did, because I already had all these songs that were I'd written on piano. I'd written all these on a Yamaha C3 baby grand piano that I bought with my first ever fuck you money from making any music money. And I bought it, and that was back in like 03, 04, something like that. And I wrote a whole record called Letters on it that I put out. And that's a lot of people's favorite record, actually, funny enough, that know my music. And so I ended up had to move to LA and for a while. And so I gifted the piano to my mom. I gave it to my mom. And after my dad died, she wanted to downsize the house and, get out of there and everything. And so she was like, I don't have room for the grand piano. So, you can have it back, but it's always mine. That's, that was the deal. And so I got it back. And when I got it here, I had a rekindled love affair on that piano and wrote all of that Glenn record, and which would become a Glenn record. So I wrote all the songs on piano. So it coming at it from a different instrument makes, to me, different sounding songs and different style.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't think I wouldn't have written a lot of those songs on guitar. Like, I wouldn't have written those style of songs. Like, if someone asked me sometimes at a campfire to play, oh, will you play blah, blah, blah? And it's a song that's on my record that's like just me and a piano. I don't even know how to play it on guitar. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I'm like, because there's so many intricate notes and things happening that. So there's a lot of that. So I did enjoy the new record, having this persona be this like kind of aging, lonely, sad bastard, like piano singer, songwriter, troubadour, balladeer who's playing in clubs to nobody. Still.
Well, I'm telling you, that's exactly what I got when I listened to the record. That was the image in my head. So you've nailed it.
Oh, good. Well, that's the intent, right? It's like it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to take something away from it than just a collection of songs on a record. Otherwise, why do we make records anymore?
Exactly.
I mean, we could just put out singles like a lot of young artists do. They don't even bother with what's a record, it's just content, but like, if I'm going to waste my time doing 12 fucking songs and put them on a record with artwork and stuff, I need it to like have a purpose and make sense and it needs to be a group effort. I don't want it to just be, okay, here's 4 songs that are filler that I just phoned in and wrote in 2 minutes because I need to finish a record, which historically that's happened on people's records. And some people may argue that some of those songs on my records are that way, but I can guarantee you, not from my perspective. I always have worked hard to make the record cohesive and a message, a thing, a story, a through line, is important.
It's great that you've kind of got the luxury to do that. And I guess there's an element of it being that you can produce your own records. You've got your own studio. You can write your own songs. You play most of the instruments. I mean, I know you work with other musicians, but you can play every instrument, can't you? So
to an extent.
No, it's cool. So I feel bad because when did I discover? Well, I discovered you not that long ago through a friend of mine, Matt Nathanson.
Oh, I love Matt. I did one of my favorite records I've ever done with him recently, his last record.
The Boston Accent one. Oh my God.
Yeah. I was like, dude, he's terrible at taking compliments. Matter of fact, he won't take a compliment. He'll just change the subject quickly. But like he rarely says thank you, which is very strange for a guy who's very he's intelligent, smart, but he can't take a compliment. Matt, I'm telling you, this record, like, I mean, we sat on that record for 2 years because we did it during the pandemic and didn't want to waste putting it out during it. So it was like that was a tough time for me to sit on those songs personally and go like, oh man, people need to hear this. This is so good. Like that song in particular, Boston Accent, is so fucking good. And I mean, there's
so many pigeons. Pigeons is my particular favorite.
The future's here. Just some of the songs, I mean, his writing is at the best it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to our conversation earlier, you know, we set out on a mission to make a record that was understated musically so that the lyrics could overstate themselves, because I think he wrote some of his best lyrics on these records and on these songs. And so we rarely used, you know, a full drum kit on any songs, hardly ever a snare backbeat, never small, and stays personal so that you really can take the lyric in. And man, I love that record so much.
Me too. It's my favorite record of his. So yeah, good job. What kind of producer are you then? Because you know, you have produced an insane amount of people, like from Pink, Panic at the Disco, Bowling for Soup, Taylor Swift. Like the list is insane. What are you like as a producer? Are you kind of the hands-on guy? Do you let the artist sort of? How does it work? What are you like?
I think it's many roles, and if you can't define a producer in one sentence. You can't say it's like, oh, it's somebody who you know, well, I'll break it up into a lot of things. How about that? A producer is someone who can come in and mic everyone up, get the sounds on the board, make it sound a certain way that people love, and capture the best performance of a song. That's one way of doing it. And some of these are completely unrelated from producer to producer. Another one would be, I'm a guidance counselor for insane artists.
The ego that's going on, the egos.
Kim Fowley, who managed the Runaways and put them together, he once said, I'm a football coach for the criminally insane. And I love that line because it basically is true. As if you're a manager or producer of some artists, you're kind of you're a therapist a lot of times. And I think that's an important role. And I think it's important to be an artist as well behind the board, so that you can be in the mind of the artist on the other side of the board. Because there is, again, like I said, not every producer is that. Some of them went to like tech school and became the most incredible sound engineers you could ever imagine, and don't know the first thing about psychology or how an artist works. And they'll walk in the room and say the most offensive shit to the artist, not knowing that it is, and piss off that artist, and the artist will leave. And they'll be like, and then the producer will be like, yeah, but listen how great it sounds. You know. And it's like, to me, you've got to be able to, I feel like it's important to be an artist, to produce an artist. And it doesn't mean that you have to always be like Rick Rubin was never an artist, but he was absolutely a therapist. He was absolutely let's call him a guru, a Svengali, whatever his imagery wants to, you know, make people believe that, you know, that he
right now with a beard,
sits cross-leg on a magic carpet and like meditates and the whole thing. I get it. It's a shtick and it's cool. But like at the same time, he's a genius because he's able to bring people together that sometimes genres that would never have worked together. Bringing, I mean, if you think about it, also a producer is being able to work on every sort of artist. And that's something Rick Rubin does so incredibly. It's like he made one of the best Dixie Chicks records. He made one of the best Slayer records. He made one of the best Johnny Cash records. He made one of the best Tom Petty records. He made one of the best, well, many of the best Beastie Boys records. I mean, it's
eclectic.
It's phenomenal to go through that laundry list of artists and say these people all eat at the same dinner table together. No, they don't. They're from all walks of life. But I love that's a part of producing, when this guy, I don't think really could walk over to a soundboard and like start turning knobs and make it sound good. He doesn't care about that. He's good at picking people to do that for him. And while he focuses on getting into the brain of the artist.
Okay,
and
interesting.
That's
You've got Rick Rubin, the other side of it. Not Rick Rubin, sorry, Mutt Lang.
Well, then you've got Mutt Lang, and then who was obviously a sonic genius, but also an incredible songwriter. And I mean, the dude wrote amazing songs. Like, I mean, he wrote "Do You Believe in Love," the first Huey Lewis and the News hit. Nobody knows that, and it's like, that's a fucking Mutt Lang written song.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best songs they ever did, and I love that band, guilty pleasure or not. But at the same time, the guy he produced arguably some of the biggest records of all time. And you could count them all on one or two hands, because there was only like five or six of those records. Like, he never had to go outside of working with, well, besides Shania Twain, he was married to at the time, but, Def Leppard, AC/DC, and the Cars. And there was very few others.
Yeah.
And it was like, I just made this record. It took me 2 laborious years to make, and it just sold 10 million albums. I can go away for a while, and then just rear my head in another 2 or 3 years and do another 10 million selling Def Leppard record that took 2 years to make instead of 2 weeks to make, like a Van Halen
Killing
record.
the band like a maniac. Yeah.
Right. And then, speaking of Van Halen, you've got people like Ted Templeman and the early Van Halen records, which are lightning in a bottle. People being able to capture literally a record that was made in 5 days.
Yeah.
And go, that's the take. And it's like the first take or the third take, and capturing that energy. That's something like, when I worked with Ryan on Afraid of Ghosts, it was all first and second takes of songs no one even knew how to play. No one even knew how to play them. The whole idea was to capture this nervous energy of not really knowing the song and hanging on by the edge of our seat to even get to the end of it. If you listen to the end of Father's Day, which is one of the most personal songs I've ever written about and it's about my dad. And I have a hard time even ever playing it live without just breaking down in it, because it's guttural, but like, it's the first and only take of the song that we did. And nobody knew it. Nobody knew how to play it. The end of it, the drummer fault stops and fault starts again. And it's like, it's a train wreck. But it's a fucking beautiful train wreck. And to me, that's good producing as well. Not just going like, no, we got to do that over. There was like, I could hear the kick drum pedal squeaking in that song. Yeah, well, guess what? It's fucking awesome when I go back and listen to When the Levee Breaks, or when I go back and listen to Led Zeppelin records and I can hear the kick drum pedal squeaking. That's cool. And that's the little...
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with that. Like, when you're watching a band live as well, it's kind of like when it all goes tits up and they have to stop, or when you can see that they're messing up a bit. I think that's the beauty of it, not being 100% slick.
Yeah, and then having the audacity to put that out as the song on the record and the track on the record. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what do people end up really gravitating towards? The demos. They like I like the demo better. I like the live version better. All the warts and all. Oh, when they released the demos of it, those are clearly better. Everybody always gets like in their head that the original version of something is better.
Yeah.
Well, why not just make the record demos? It's like, why not just their demo performances? And sometimes that's a beautiful thing. And I've fought for that on records and lost many a battle with record labels and overthinking artists and managers and people that'll just be like, no, that's not my favorite vocal performance. It's like, I can hear that I've got like, my voice is like shredded from not being able to like, from like, singing it first time on the microphone and yada yada. I've got to really warm up and get better before we do that vocal. And I'm like, you will never have the emotion that you have in that vocal performance if you do it again. I guarantee you. And that's not everything. Sometimes I've been proven wrong where they'll redo it and it's way better. And I'm like, okay, I'll shut up. But a lot of times, like, you can't capture you can't recapture lightning in that same bottle. You can't.
Okay. So you're more of a kind of, you like to maybe record it more live and not do too many takes. Is that kind of your approach, or does it just depend from artist to artist?
It's artist to artist, and that's what I veered way off the road of what you were talking about. But it's, to me, being a combination of all those descriptions of producers is what I like to try to aspire to do. I like to be all of those. And it varies from record to record and artist to artist is how we're going to do this. Some records I do, it's just me and the artist, and I'm the only band member. I'm playing every instrument and I'm recording it and everything. Some of them I'm not even touching an instrument, and I'm just watching a band on the floor do it all and becoming a cheerleader, or a football coach. I'm really insane. So yeah, there's a reason that all of those lanes are important for a producer, and if you can pull from a little of each of them, then I think that's a good thing.
No, I hear you on that. So when was the point when you realized that fuck it, I don't like love sounds like fucking a donut? When did the penny drop for that? That just cracks me up so much. I was like, oh my God, because there's a load of songs that are like that, where the lyric is something and you think it's something else. And all artists surely must have that. They don't realize straight away, and then they're performing it live, and maybe there's the penny drops kind of moment.
Yeah, well, so also like a lot that happened a lot on 70s and 80s songs that had like big harmonies on choruses and stuff, where maybe sometimes the consonants and the syllables get a little washed away, and you interpret it as your own lyric. And that's happened since the dawn of rock and roll, right? I mean, we've been doing that forever. But that one in particular, I think somebody had just told me that. Somebody had just said, some people think that means that you're saying fucking a donut, because it's like no, fucking a donut. Love. And then so if you say it fast enough, it just sounds like I'm saying love, love, fucking a donut, love, love, fucking a donut, love. And so live, we had a lot of fun with that, where we would, split the audience up and make them sing back and forth. And sometimes I'd make them sing fucking a donut.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. That's great. Because I could just imagine it. It's like, you put it out there and then you're like, oh my God, that sounds like I'm saying that. And you're like, oh no. Of all things as well.
Can't unhear it. Yeah. Somebody sent me a fan art picture the other day that was of of literal illustrations of song titles of mine, and one of them was "Fuck It, I Don't Like Love," but it was a donut and a girl's fingers through the center of the donut, and it was very sexual and very erotically hot to look at. But it was a funny nod, because it just said "Fuck it, I don't like love." So it's funny that they put the actual what they think it says in the middle.
Yeah, that's great. Oh my God. Brilliant. So, I know you've got to go very soon. Tell me about some of your guitars, because I saw you post something recently about an acoustic guitar that you said you posted something. It's a beautiful acoustic guitar, and is it that one that you? This one,
because it never leaves my side when I'm in here.
Okay.
And
yes, that's it.
Yeah, this is my beloved 62 Hummingbird, but with a dove tailpiece. And it's exactly as I found it, but with the pickguard completely ripped off and glue all over it. When I bought it for $800 in Spartanburg, South Carolina, back when I definitely didn't have a pot to piss in financially, and so it was cheap even for then, like 20 years ago, because it wasn't original. I mean, having a whole other bridge put on it from another guitar, would degrade the value immediately. So right. if I were buying a 62 untouched, pristine Hummingbird 20 years ago, even, it would have cost me like $3,000 at the time.
Wow.
Probably.
Okay.
$3,000 or so. And now if you look at what those are worth, a 62 Hummingbird, online is going to be can be upwards of 10 grand, give or take a few grand.
Yeah.
It's all depending on so many factors. But I didn't care about that, and I still don't care about that kind of shit. What I cared about was when I picked up this guitar at the store, it immediately spoke. It immediately had songs in it. It fit me like a glove. It fit my hands, and I just loved it. And so what happened though over the years is tragedy would strike in '07 when a fire, sounds like I'm reading a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
It was basically a wildfire leveled our house and my studio and took everything. And that was when I probably had already collected up to like 50 vintage guitars and lots of vintage gear. And it was awful to lose all of that, right? So as you can imagine, it was awful to lose it all, and it was awful to have it also ill insured. It was all very underinsured at the time, because what I had, it was all the things I had owned since I was a kid all the way up till then. So every little piece of gear that I had hung on to had gone up in value so much, and I made the terrible mistake and oversight of never updating the cost of the insurance on current items. Jeez. That's on me. That's a terrible thing. I learned a valuable lesson that day. And one thing that that was a relief was this guitar was in the shop getting a crack repair because literally this guitar had, like, you can kind of see them, but like there's like cracks the length of the body all the way down the body. There were gashes all through it. The bracing, everything had been broken because I was not precious with this guitar. I would like take it on tour. I would play it on my records. I'd take it on tour. I'd throw it 50 feet in the air. Not 50 feet. It's not possible, but I would throw it like really high in the air. I'd catch it, just throw it on the ground, throw it to my tech, drop it. I didn't care. I was like, if it came back the next day for the next show, great. I just wasn't precious about it. Well, after that, and after that fire, the first thing I said was like, where is that guitar? I've got to get that guitar. Oh my God, it's in the shop. I can't believe it. It's survived.
Yeah.
But it was almost to the point of irreparable anyway, because there was so many broken. The thing had just been broken, and it had no volume and no bottom end and no output, nothing. I couldn't even use it on records anymore. But what I did is I just hung it on the wall and said, this will never go on the road again, but it will always be with me.
So you'd retired it, basically.
Right. But what happened is, why it sounds so good now, is I gave it back to Gibson because I became really good friends with one of the owners of Gibson, Cesar, recently. And he said, would you be comfortable us taking that guitar and bringing its sound back to life, but not disturbing the guitar? And I said, absolutely, because I want to play this guitar again so bad. Yeah. And no one could get it. No, just like off the shelf luthier could do it. So he had his like personal luthier, his personal tech, take the guitar, and I literally got a Dropbox folder spreadsheet of pictures and all the things that were done to this guitar that he had to do. The bridge, the whole entire Dove bridge was completely redone. Like they cut and did a brand new one, because the other one was lifted off the body. It was broken underneath. It was irreparable. It was cracked everywhere. So they did a handmade Dove bridge for me and put it on there, resaddled it, rebraced everything inside of it because all the bracing was bad, filled all the cracks, and basically just made it play like an off-the-shelf 62, which it's just so good. And
okay.
So it's my favorite guitar still. except for it's got back the life that I unfortunately sucked out of it by being an asshole and throwing it and breaking it a million times on stage. So now I'm a lot more careful with these
Oh, well,
guitars.
look, I mean, look at Trigger, Willie's guitar. I mean, that's insane, that guitar. And I love it. I love the fact that it has that, all the wear and tear on it.
Oh, all this wear is for me too. Like
Yeah,
that's
beautiful.
not all like that's not store-bought wear. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely did all of that to it. And you should see under the pick guard, because the pick guard was like off of it for years. And because it was just bubbled up glue everywhere, and I
Yeah.
couldn't make a pick guard fit on there. So they actually salvaged my pick guard and scraped it on the back and like got it off the guitar without messing up the wood, and got it back on there. So, but it's such a great guitar.
Wow.
I mean, it's got like,
What a lovely story.
yeah, it's a cool story. I mean, it's like, and it's just such a great, it's an extension of me for sure.
Yeah. Which I love. I love that with guitars. A lot of guitarists do say that they are, and I firmly believe there's a lot of guitarists that have lost their guitars. Like if you look at Peter Frampton with the Phoenix and stuff like that. And there is a theory. I have this theory that if they're meant to be, they come back to you. And there are a lot of guitarists that get them back. There's like really great stories how they get them
Cool.
back.
That's some really cool, like metaphysical shit. I love it. I love when that happens.
Yeah, me too. So you mentioned the fire. Was that because you did the music video to Ships in a Bottle?
Mm-hmm.
Was that the fire then? That you're walking around?
That was the fire, and that was the house. That was
Like that.
Yeah, that was a few days after the fire.
Everything is completely gone. That's insane. So it completely burnt down to the ground.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, that was the studio and the house.
Oh my God. That's horrific.
Yeah, that was definitely not, it was not fun to go back home. Because we were in New York City at the time, and my son was only 6 months old, and that's when you get the news that your entire house and studio had burned to the ground, and there's nothing you can do. It's Thanksgiving weekend, and I can't go home because all the flights are booked, and I couldn't even change a flight if I wanted to. So I had to wait in New York for 3 days.
Ugh.
But we managed to get a beautiful, like piece of art out of the wreckage with the video, just to show destruction and equate it to a love that had burned down, being burned out literally. There was a lot of metaphors at that time, because on that record, it was a record called Sycamore Meadows, which was the name of the street that I lived on. And it, right before that fire happened, I was feeling burnout. I was feeling creative writing burnout.
Okay.
Couldn't write anything. I was complacent. Had two of everything I ever wanted in life, because I'd finally like made a good living in music, and was like, comfortable. I was comfortable, and comfortable is not always a great place to be for a songwriter. And so I was like, the well was dry. I was burned out, and emotionless. And then the fire came and took everything. And then all of a sudden I wrote the rest of the entire record, including, Ships in a Bottle, ironically, was one of the first songs I had written before the fire. Like it was like, that was, well, I should say one of the last songs I had written.
Yeah.
And it talks about, love burning out. And then I was like, well, it's only fitting that we probably go, maybe we should probably, make a video to this song,
Yeah. No, it does. Well, look, I guess, on the upside, you created something positive out of something so awful. So,
I know. And that's exactly what you have to do, is you have to make art from the ashes, and so to speak.
Nice.
So.
Very nice. Yeah, you can tell you're a lyricist there. Okay, well, listen, what's next for you then, Butch?
Next, I'm going to finish making this. I've been working on a record for a guy named Patrick Droney, and I'm finishing up mixing we're having a record mixed right now that I produced for an artist named Bethany Cosentino, who's the singer from a band called Best Coast, and she's making her first solo record, and it's phenomenal, and I'm excited about that. So just kind of finishing up these records, and then I plan on literally working on my motorcycle garage for the rest of the year and being a tweaker.
Great. Well, good. It's good to hear it. Well, listen, it's so great to have you on the show and have a proper chat. So thank you.
Thank you, love. It was great to see you. And
Yeah, you too.
awesome to talk to you.
I know. I can't believe that we've finally made this happen after being Instagram friends for a while.
We are.